Welcome back to Eye on the Money, and today on the show we're discussing the fundamentals of good personal finance, and with me in studio breaking it all down is none other than Maxwell Gichuhi, and he's a financial consultant at MJ Consulting. Now Maxwell, you've done a very great job when before the break talking to us basically what good financial management entails, the strategies you need to put in place to attain good financial management. You've even told us how to prepare ourselves for this election period that's just around the corner. Now, to pick up on a point that you made earlier on in the conversation, you talked about how essential it is to put goals in place that will guide in good financial management. Now, I'd like to dwell a bit on that point, because when we think about goals, there are long-term goals and there are short-term goals. What should constitute this? Some goals could be heavy in terms of the kind of finances you need to put towards them. Some could be something that's achievable. So for someone who's trying to manage this, what I'm trying to say is it could be a bit confusing. So how do you figure it out? How do you decide it's a long-term goal, a short-term goal? This, how much will go? What's the guide towards that?
Fantastic. So let me begin by saying, Ingrid, when we talk about wealth creation, what is our end goal? Our end goal is roughly, for most people, it will be, I want to get to a point where I don't need to work for me to live the life I'm living or sustain that lifestyle. Actually, if anything, I would want a better lifestyle, right? So that's for anyone who doesn't have a goal. That's what we are looking at. You're looking at maybe I'm in my 20s, I would like to retire at 40. I don't need to wait till 60. Or I'm even in my 40s, I had not planned for that. So I'm looking at what will it take for me to sustain my lifestyle, even if I don't have this income from my employer. So that's the first place to begin, and that gives us the long-term goal. So we look at, for example, I would say maybe today I spent 70,000. That means in terms of all my bills, my rent, entertainment, school fees, and everything, I have around 70,000, and I want to work actively for the next 20 years. So in 20 years, how much will be? How will my 70,000 look like? So we will bring in the factors of inflation and all that. Right. Ingrid, when I was in Form 1, when I got to high school, bread, that place that says bread, man shall not live by bread alone, right. We understood it better because bread was very important. Right. When I got in, a quarter of bread, would buy in quarters, a quarter of bread was 2 shillings. A term later, that same quarter was 4 shillings because we had the highest inflation in this country. So we take into consideration that today maybe I need 2 packets of milk and bread at 200 shillings. Right. How will it look like in 20 years? So there are calculators that people can get online that will help you project, taking the base average inflation of around 5% and say how much will I need in 20 years. That will give us a better picture on our goal. Now, short-term goals, we can begin with how to pay your loans and emergency fund. And for me, emergency fund is very important, right? So let's have this long-term goal. But for anyone who's never done this, I want you to go and write how much you spend in your house. And then multiply that number by 6. So that's a figure we are looking at. 6 months of sustenance. That with or without any other income, I have enough money to sustain my family for 6 months. That's on the short-term goal. Now, we don't have to do it in a month or 2 months. You can do it averagely even in 2 years. But what we need for our people to do is to start putting some money aside that goes towards our short-term goals, which is emergency fund. Then work with a finance coach or someone, or just study on how do I do the long-term. I've given a tip. If you have a child, my daughter is less than 1 year. Right. In 18 years, I assume he'll be in university. I can look at how much does Strathmore University charge today. That's why I'd want maybe for her to go before she can make her own decision. And take that money and include the inflation for education is usually a third of the normal inflation in the country. So if today our inflation is 6%, for education it will be around 2%. So tabulate, this is the amount I would need for 4 years, this is my goal. How much do I need to save? Again, we don't need to work with the cosine tables. You can go online and just get a calculator and say, I want to have saved this money, taking into consideration inflation rate at 3% or whatever percent. How much do I need to save in 20 years? And you get to see how much you need to put. And it's really a small amount. Yeah. Actually, most people would be shocked.
Right.
Yes.
Now, Maxwell, actually twice in this conversation now you've brought out the component of loans and debt. And whether we like it or not, loans, or rather maybe debt, are a very integral part of good financial management,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So as the expert, I would like to hear your thoughts on credit cards, loans, debt. What is their place in good financial management? How does someone go about that? Is credit a good thing? You know, taking out credit a good thing?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who just walks into the supermarket and just swipes and I'll figure it out at the end of the month? You know, goes online, but what's the place of that when it comes to effectively managing your finances?
I fear these things we call credit card, Ingrid, because they teach us to spend money that we do not have. And most of us are in debts because maybe we wanted to live a lifestyle that we could not afford.
Right.
All right. And like I said, we can all achieve our goals if we are patient and we are committed and disciplined. Now, loans, I usually say a loan is like a fire. Right? Let's call it loans or credit. It's like a fire. A fire is a good thing. I use a fire to marinate my nyama choma. You know, that goat soaked in a good mixture of rosemary and those spices marinated overnight, and then I'll use that fire to cook this meat. All right. Yet the same fire can burn me, and that's the same thing with loans. If we use these loans to help us bring more money to us, that's a good loan. But if I'm using a loan to spend on an asset that will get more money out of my pocket, then that's not really a good loan. Does that make sense? So a loan that is helping you to bring money into your pocket. Let's say you took a loan, Ingrid, to buy an Uber so that you can have a side stream of income while you're doing what you do 8 to 5, right? That's a good loan because that loan will actually pay itself.
Right.
But if I took a loan because Ingrid just bought a new Volvo, what do you mean? I can also buy a new Volvo. So I go and buy, and probably it was a gift to you on Women's Day from your uncle, right? So I buy a car, and then I forget I still have to maintain this car. I still have to pay insurance. There are other costs that are coming along with that cost, and I have taken that loan and I have to service it. Then that is not a good loan, right?
Right.
Yes.
Maxwell, would you believe it if I told you we've come to the end of the show? That's all the time we had.
Oh.
I know, right? It was so quick. I think it's because it was such a great topic. I want to say thank you very much for making time to come and break it down for us step by step, give us formulas, because whether we like it or not, as long as you're making money or have access to money, you have to have the fundamentals to effectively manage that money.
Right.
I hope we can have you again on the show soon.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. My parting shot is for anyone who's listening to us. The day to do this is to start today, not tomorrow.
Brilliant. And that's all the show we had for you today on Eye on the Money. You're always so amazing for staying with us to the end. Remember, you can be a part of the conversation by sending your feedback to our social media handles at Metropole TV KE, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have amazing content coming your way, so don't go anywhere.